All right, let's dive in. We're going to look at a story that, on the surface, seems to be about something, well, kind of simple: washing your hands before you eat. But trust me, it spirals into this massive confrontation that completely flips the script on what it means to be pure and challenges centuries of tradition.
So it all boils down to this one question, right? What actually makes a person unclean? Is it, the actual dirt on your hands? Or is it something deeper, like what's going on in your heart? This is the core of the whole thing. And the answer? Wow, it was a game changer.
Okay, so where does this whole drama kick off? You might think it's in a temple or some big official setting, but nope. It starts around a dinner table. That's right, a simple meal is about to spark this huge debate over some really old rules.
And the tension ramps up almost immediately. A group of religious leaders, they come all the way from Jerusalem, and they show up with a bone to pick. They've spotted what they see as a major problem. Jesus' disciples are eating with unwashed, or as they called them, defiled hands.
And there it is, the official complaint. And you gotta notice, this has nothing to do with germs or hygiene, not at all. Their big problem is that someone's breaking tradition. This is really where the battle lines get drawn.
And we're not just talking about a quick rinse under the tap. This tradition was a whole system of ceremonial washings. You had to wash your hands before eating, wash things you bought at the market, even wash your cups and pots in a specific way. It was an entire lifestyle built around this idea of external ritual purity.
But Jesus doesn't just play defense here. He totally flips the script. He goes on the offensive, turning the accusation right back at them. And in doing so, he takes this from a small argument about hand washing to a huge debate about human rules versus God's actual law.
Oof, this is a pretty sharp comeback. Jesus actually quotes the ancient prophet Isaiah to call them hypocrites. He's basically saying, your worship is hollow, it's all talk. You say the right words, but your hearts aren't in it. He's arguing their entire religious system is built on rules that people made up, not on what God actually commanded.
And he doesn't just leave it at that. He's not just making a vague accusation. He brings up a very specific and pretty damning example of how their man-made traditions were leading them to break one of God's most important laws. So here's the side-by-side he lays out. On one side, you've got this direct command from God, honor your father and mother, which absolutely included taking care of them. But on the other side, you have their tradition, this little loophole they created called korban that let them get around it.
So, what in the world is this korban thing? Well, it was basically a religious loophole. You could officially declare that your money, or maybe your property, was devoted to God. And what did that mean? It meant you could turn to your elderly parents and say, hey, sorry, can't help you out. All my money is for God now. It was a way to use a religious rule to dodge a fundamental family duty.
So after taking apart their argument, Jesus turns to the crowd that's been watching all this. And this is the moment. He delivers the absolute core of his teaching here, and he completely redefines what purity even means in a way that would have been totally shocking to everyone listening.
I mean, this just turns their entire worldview upside down. He's saying, look, it's not the food you eat. It's not the dirt on your hands that makes you unclean. What really makes you unclean is what comes from inside you, your thoughts, your motives, your actions.
And here's his list of what truly defiles someone. And notice there's nothing here about ritual mistakes. It's all about moral character. We're talking about things like theft, greed, envy, arrogance. These, he says, are the real sources of impurity, and every single one of them starts inside a person, in the heart.
The takeaway from this is just massive. Think about it. If nothing you eat can make you spiritually unclean, then all those detailed, complex dietary laws, they're no longer the point. The focus shifts 180 degrees, away from ritual purity and straight to internal morality. Real cleanliness is about the state of your character, not the contents of your dinner plate.
But this wasn't just some abstract philosophical idea. Jesus immediately goes out and shows everyone what this principle looks like in the real world. We get to see this new kind of purity in action through two really powerful encounters.
So first, he goes into a non-Jewish area and meets a Greek woman. Now, by the religious standards of that time, she was a total outsider. Just by birth, she would have been considered ritually unclean. But she doesn't care. She comes right up to him and begs him to heal her daughter.
Now, his response sounds really harsh to our ears. He uses a common metaphor from back then. The children are the people of Israel, and dogs was a dismissive term for non-Jews. It sounds like he's shutting her down, but what he's really doing is testing her. Will she get offended and walk away, or will she push through? And her reply is just incredible. It's so clever,
but it's also humble and just packed with faith. She doesn't argue with his metaphor, she leans into it. She basically says, okay, fine. But even the dogs get the crumbs that fall off the table. I'm not asking for the whole loaf, just a crumb of your power.
And that's all it takes. For that one response, her daughter is healed. Instantly. Her external status as an unclean foreigner meant absolutely nothing. What mattered was her heart, the purity of her faith.
And the lesson keeps going. Next, Jesus heads to another region that was mostly non-Jewish, the Decapolis. And there, a crowd brings him a man who is deaf and could barely speak, someone who was physically isolated from the world around him.
And look at how personal this healing is. Jesus pulls the man away from the crowd, so it's just them. He physically touches the man's ears and tongue, and then he says this one powerful word, ephphatha, which just means be opened. It's this moment of direct, compassionate connection that completely bypasses any rules about who is or isn't clean to touch.
And what does the crowd think? They're just blown away. They're not stuck debating traditions anymore. They're witnessing a life being restored right in front of them. They just see someone doing good, making a broken person whole again.
So these two healings are like the living proof of his teaching. They show that real purity isn't about staying away from people you think are unclean. It's about moving toward them with compassion to bring healing and restoration. It's about breaking down walls, not building them higher.
And that really leaves us with a pretty powerful question, doesn't it? One we can ask ourselves today. It makes you stop and think, what are the modern traditions we have? The external rules, the habits we have in our culture or religion that maybe, just maybe, are distracting us from what really matters. You know, things like compassion, kindness, the stuff that actually comes from the heart.